light of infinite.
When I hear beautiful Jewish music, it hits my soul in a different way than when I hear an equally incredible song, say by Bon Iver. Jewish music is what I imagine was played in the Beit HaMikdash, and the lyrics are generally inspired by passages from the Torah. And what comes from the heart enters the heart, and nothing resonates more than the truth. And of course, Torah is the truth and is synonymous with water, because both water and Torah give us life. Music steeped in Torah brings life because it's that well that it's drawn from, and that's what we connect to when we're listening to it. In our parashah, we see Basya, Pharaoh's daughter, pulls Moshe from the water to save him, bringing redemption to an entire nation on the brink of destruction. She named him Moshe, meaning the one who is drawn from the water, and the gematria of Moshe is 345, which represents redemption. Reb Natan of Breslov teaches that Moshe elevates the Jews from Shemot, which is destruction, which is gematria 344, to Ratzon, which is divine favor, which is gematria 346. So he's right in the middle of that, elevating destruction to divine favor. So Moshe represents redemption. We see this in this parsha as he's growing up in the house of Pharaoh, but yet he still stood up for justice, with the murder of the Egyptian when he was doing wrong, the quarrel of the two Israelites, and the rescue of Yitro's daughter are mentioned right after they mention that Moshe grew up in Pharaoh to teach us of Moshe's spiritual greatness. The way we feel about music of our past, Moshe felt and knew that he was not an Egyptian despite him growing up there, despite his upbringing and surroundings, and he knew he was an Israelite. Moshe had an attachment to Yocheved, his nursemaid, and her children, and only later found out that he was her son and that the children were his siblings. As the saying goes, the truth always comes out in the end. It was then that Moshe grew up and he went out to his brethren and saw their suffering. Later in the Parashat it says, Hashem saw that he turned aside to see. This is referring to Moshe's leaving his own comforts to see the pain and suffering of the others and acting on it. This is what made Moshe worthy of being the Redeemer and the leader of B'nei Yisrael. It is something we all need to continuously learn from. It's not enough to see and feel empathetic towards someone suffering, but we must also act on it and work to redeem the ones who are suffering. It's also interesting to note that Moshe seems to be asking that Hashem send the Moshiach instead of him when we're reading the pasuk, "Send, I pray you, by the hand of whom you will send." The Midrash is telling us that this is Moshe asking the Moshiach be sent in his stead, meaning by the hand of Moshiach, who will be the future Redeemer. Of course, as the story plays out, we see the request was not granted, and Moshe is the one to redeem Israel from the enslavement of Egypt to the Promised Land. We see here the connection between Moshiach and Moshe. As it's written in the Zohar, Moshe was the first and he will be the last Redeemer. What this actually means and what it's teaching us is the redemptive power of the Moshiach is drawn from Moshe, and that they share traits and characteristics. Moshe brought on all of the mitzvot and is the ultimate connector. Previous to that, we see Adam had 6 mitzvot, Noach had 7 mitzvot, and each patriarch prior to Moshe had an extra mitzvah. But only with Moshe did the Torah become revealed, and that redemption was the greatest one up until that point, because it connects us to the source, to the light of infinite, and it is the tools that will bring the Moshiach. And it may feel that our generation is at a lower level than the previous, but we're actually standing on the good deeds of those that came before us, connected to their souls, and our ascents and our final redemption come from the previous hardships and the ascents that came from those descents. We are now in the time of the final redemption, closer than we've ever been. We need to tap into that reality, that truth, that oneness, and reveal what has previously been concealed, because the revelation is becoming clearer than it's ever been. Shabbat Shalom.